In this video, we'll be looking at the following question. How do you know which way a currency is most likely to move so that you can then buy it or sell it to make a profit? If you've already started practicing your fundamental analysis, you might have a few currencies that you've noticed are in the news being talked about by traders and analysts, and in turn, you know that this is where you want to also be focusing your attention. So how do you know which way the currencies you have found will move next? The simplest way you can answer that question right away is to follow our daily forecasts, because these have been specially put together with new traders in mind. They not only highlight the best currencies based on the latest fundamental analysis, but they also explain why those currencies have been selected and which way we expect them to move. We even put them together into a pair that you can focus on nice and easily. For your long-term development, however, the next few videos will focus on some very specific principles and events that tend to have a clear impact on the direction that currencies move in. By absorbing these lessons, you will have a whole new set of things to look out for and recognise as you conduct your fundamental analysis that will tell you which way the currencies are most likely to move next. So let's begin with the biggest thing that decides the direction of a currency, and that is the interest rate decisions of central banks. The reason that interest rates have such a big impact on currencies is explained in two parts. The first part is the effect that rates have on investors. If an investor sees that the UK has recently started increasing its interest rate and that it's most likely going to keep increasing it for the next few months, then this makes the UK a very attractive place to put their money. The UK is safe, respected, and now its banks will be paying a nice rate of interest on any money deposited in its banks. Very attractive indeed. However, in order to access UK banks and these attractive interest rates, the investor must use British pounds to invest. So every single investor from outside the UK must first of all sell their local currency and buy pounds. The higher the rate goes, the more investors will be attracted and the more purchasing of pounds will take place. This naturally will result in the value of the pound rising due to the basic laws of supply and demand. Part 2 kicks in even sooner, when speculators like us realise that this is about to play out over the next few months. They then buy into the pound as quickly as possible to get ahead of the moves that are about to be caused by those large investors gradually coming into the market. This activity in itself causes the pound to rally in the short term as all the speculators try to get in as quickly as possible so that they can get the lowest price they can. So as you can see, an increasing interest rate causes many types of people to buy the pound. Falling interest rates obviously have the opposite effect. This is why interest rates are so closely watched by the market, because the resulting moves are so stable and predictable, not to mention profitable. The key, of course, is that you get in early enough, because the market is always thinking about what is coming next. So if that news is priced in, then it's less likely to continue, especially if the market feels that no more interest rate moves are on the way later on. This is how new traders lose money when they start, by simply trying to trade blindly on any news about interest rates. If you want to avoid that trap, then make sure you're always trying to think ahead of the rest of the market and figure out what Mr. Market might do next, rather than what you think should happen based on plain facts or common sense. Now, we understand this core driver of the currencies. What else can tell us which way a currency is likely to move next? But a very common and popular principle lies within the central bank itself. The banks don't like wild moves in the market because it's bad for business. If everyone is too scared to invest their money, then the whole economy will very quickly grind to a halt, and this is very often what happens during a recession. It simply means that everyone is too scared to spend money because they just don't know what's going to happen next. So a central bank will always try and keep things ticking along nice and steady in a very predictable manner. And part of this is through communication to the markets. Believe it or not, but central banks go to great lengths to be as clear and open with the markets as possible so that they don't get spooked when they take action out of the blue. This generally keeps things stable, but it's also a source of profits for speculators like us. When a central bank makes a statement or conducts a press conference, these are obviously done by people that sit on the bank's board. Each board is headed by a chief that's ultimately responsible for the central bank's decisions and also communication with the outside world. Each member has a stance or opinion on whether interest rates should be higher or lower, and based on these opinions, we have 3 possible descriptions for each member. For those that prefer higher rates, they are known as hawks. For those that prefer lower rates, they are called doves. And for those that like to play it by ear, they are known as being neutral. When a central bank member makes any kind of comment, the market is looking to see whether this matches or goes against their normal common view. For example, if a hawk says that they think the interest rate should be lower, this is totally opposite of their normal view. In fact, we have a hawk making a dovish comment, and it works in every combination. The point is, if a dove makes a hawkish comment or a neutral starts being quite dovish, then the market will quickly pick up on this and use it as a sign that interest rates might be going the way of their newfound comments. The rationale is, if a hawk is talking in a dovish way, then things must be bad and the bank could be ready to act quickly. So the first way you can know quickly which way a currency will move is by learning which central bank members have which views and how each board breaks down into groups of hawks, doves and neutrals. Over time, when you see or hear the audio squawks or comments just made that contradict their normal stance, you can act quickly and make profits as the market reacts with it. This explains why central banks are so carefully watched, because it's not just what they do that gives us opportunities, but mostly what they say. Central bankers know this and sometimes will try and use this to their advantage. For example, they might state that they're thinking about adjusting the rate if the markets don't stop buying the currency. This is a nice quick way to get the markets to see that a currency is getting expensive and hurting business within the economy that export to foreign countries. The problem is, Mr. Market is intelligent enough to figure out when a central bank is just playing him and really has no intention of adjusting the interest rate at all. In these scenarios, the attempt can backfire on the bank when the market does the total opposite of what they wanted, because they know there is no real intent behind their words. You will see this many times during your career when a bank says or even does something that should send the currency one way, but the market doesn't believe it and trades the opposite way. It really is like a constant triangular mind game with Mr. Market, yourself and the central banks. Everyone is trying to outwit the other to profit from their mistakes or save themselves some effort. It can be confusing at first, but with enough practice, you will get to know all the players in the game well enough to predict their behaviour correctly more often than not. The key, as ever, is dedicated practice in conducting your fundamental analysis, selecting your currencies and then experiencing how the markets react to each event over time. It's just like having a relative or a friend that you know very well to have a short temper. When a certain situation arises, you'll immediately be able to see that your friend is going to react very soon, so that you can either quickly act to diffuse the situation or sit back and enjoy the fireworks. The point is that you learn people's behaviour by experiencing similar events time and again, and this is how professional traders really get good at making money from the markets. You will hear many of them talking about their gut instinct or their inner feeling, but in reality it is simply the fact that they have learned how the market works through practice and experience. The reason most retail traders fail is because they never even realise these things and continue looking at pretty charts and clever robots to do all the work for them. One thing that is important to come back to is that currencies are traded in pairs, so we need to be on the lookout for 2 currencies that have almost opposite things going on. For example, 2 central banks that are doing the opposite things with their interest rate. This gives us the perfect pair to trade. We have one currency that is very likely to go up in value, we have another that is very likely to go down in value. So it makes perfect sense to trade them together against each other as a pair. The more of an extreme difference between the outlooks for each currency is, the better the trade opportunity will be. It's perfectly fine to buy a strong currency against a currency that is just neutral with not much happening either way. But in the city, a firm would train their traders to always look for the best opportunity available and making sure that each currency has a clear bias in the opposite direction to the other. And that's a key to finding solid pairs to make a profit from. So now you understand a little more deeply about why central banks are so important to FX traders and how you should properly monitor them and figure out how the markets will react. The next step is for us to start going through some very specific trading strategy examples detailing events and scenarios that will often lead to very clear moves on the associated currencies. By the end of these videos, you will have some very clear ideas about how to figure out which way the currencies will move from your own analysis without relying on our team or anyone else. And remember, as you practice each of the following profit opportunities, use your trading coach who trades these things and can help you improve much quicker than doing it all by yourself.